What?
You want to tell them what that, how do you say hello in Swahili?
Hi.
I'm not saying it.
Is it hi Bobby?
Something like that.
Hi Bari, hi Bari. I'm not real familiar with that. But anyway, you learned something new again today, huh? So we're going to talk about Africa. Africa is a big continent. How many countries in Africa? No?
8.
No?
7.
No?
13.
He
No?
said big, and you're going lower.
Yeah, y'all, I gotta look it up here. I had to read it somewhere.
14.
14.
14.
I think it's 50, I think it's 51
What?
countries in Africa. It's a big continent, it covers a lot of ground, you know, all the way from Egypt at the top, all the way down to South Africa at the bottom. So we were in 2 countries in Africa. We were in Zambia, which is kind of south central at the bottom. Then we were in Kenya, which is East Africa. A lot of you probably know Father Gabriel here in Moulton. He's from Ghana, and that's West Africa. But that's a big country. It's a big continent, rather. So we went in July. July on the other side of the planet is winter. July is summer here, but we're on the other side of the equator, right? So we're all the way on the other side of the world. That was a 20-hour flight. It's a long time. Seemed like we flew over the Sahara Desert for a long time. We just saw orange sand, orange sand, orange sand. Big wasteland, wide open. So Zambia and Zimbabwe are 2 countries. They used to be Rhodesia, North and South Rhodesia. That was all British countries. They were British maintained. They speak British, they speak the English British, and they drive on the other side of the road, which is kind of confusing when you get there. But Rhodesia was named for Cecil Rhodes, who was a politician who built railroads connecting the country. So they named those countries after him. But then when they got their independence, they choose their own names, which was Zambia and Zimbabwe. So about 54 countries, now I see it. So we ended up in Livingston. I don't know if everybody heard the tale of Dr. Livingston, I presume. Does that ring a bell with anybody? Anybody ever heard that? Well, Dr. Livingston was a missionary who explored, one of the first Europeans to explore a big part of Africa. And I believe he actually died there. But he was missing for a while, and someone finally found him. They were looking for him. They wanted to write an article on him, and they said, Dr. Livingston, I presume. So if you ever hear that tale, that's where it comes from. And that's who this town is named for, Dr. Livingston. So we went to Livingston to see Victoria Falls. Of course, the pictures don't do justice, but Victoria Falls is the largest falling sheet of water in the world. There's waterfalls that are taller, and there are some that have more volume, you know, acre feet of water. But this one is so long, it's almost a mile wide. It falls into a rift. When you fly in from with an airplane, it looks like a forest fire. It looks like smoke. It's all the mist rising from that churning when it's hitting the rocks. The Swahili name for these falls are Mosai Atunya. They call it smoke that thunders, because it's loud when you get there. You're going to get wet if you're anywhere close. Matter of fact, you get there and the water is going up because it's churned so much, and you think the rain should fall down. It's all going up. The rainbows everywhere because there's such a mist in the air. You see it at night with a full moon. You can see a moonbow, but we didn't see that.
Yeah, we didn't see that.
But it was visible. So you can actually see that 30 miles away because of the mist rising in the air, because it's dry country. So when we stayed there, we stayed at a nice resort there. We rode some elephants. And my wife and I were the only 2 tourists, but they come with 6 elephants, I believe, because they travel as a unit. It's a family of elephants. So it was just, she was on one and I was on the other. But she was really holding on to that man driving, because riding an elephant is not like a horse. You know, they can go over real steep terrain, and you're sitting there, and all of a sudden the bottom drops because they got those long legs and back and forth, you know. But it was a lot of fun. We had some nice photos. So an elephant has to eat 18 hours a day just to survive, because they're so big. And 50% of what they eat passes through them. They don't digest it all. They eat real rough stuff, bark, leaves, roots. The elephant is what they call a keystone species of the jungle. They'll move into a jungle area that's overgrown, full of brush, weeds, trees all to the ground, and they're grazing. They pull all those branches down. After a while, they're trimmed up pretty high. All those shrubs, they use their tusk. They're not only for fighting, they're for eating. They pull them out of the ground, they eat those roots. Well, next thing you know, the ground looks manicured like a park, and grass starts growing because they've got it clear. So what happens when the grass starts growing? Well, here come the grazing animals, and here come the impala and the water buck and the kudu, all the grazing animals. Well, now what? There's grazing animals. Here come the meat eaters. Here come the lions. Here come the leopards. Here come the cheetahs, baboons, monkeys. They all follow suit, and it's all because the elephant has cleared the area, basically. That's why it's called a keystone species. So, the elephant's lifespan is limited by his teeth. Your teeth, you have baby teeth, and they push out. They come out, the adult teeth push them out. Elephant, their teeth come from back to front. And they have 6 sets. As they grow, one of them wears down and another one slowly moves in. And their motors grind and grind and grind and grind, and they finally wear down. And another set moves in. So after about 6 sets, they're about 60, 70 years old. That's the end of their lifespan because they'll slowly starve. They can't eat anymore. But that's nature's way. So I didn't take a picture of the baobab tree. We saw this massive baobab tree, biggest tree I've ever seen. I've seen a lot of trees in my life because I'm in the business of removing them. But it was like 2,400 years old. I don't think I brought that picture up. So we took a small bush plane and we ended up in Chio Camp. And this is on the Zambezi River. So most of our trip was on the Zambezi River. Zambezi River is what feeds Victoria Falls. Victoria Falls was named after Queen Victoria. And I think Dr. Livingston is the one who named it. At that time she was queen, back in the late 1800s, I guess. But we saw all different, here's our camp. It was a nice tented camp. We had 2 different camps. We traveled by boat from one to the other. It's a concrete floor. It's like a tented structure, maybe bamboo walls. And at night I thought it was raining. I said, my goodness, we're getting rain, but it wasn't. It was the monkeys in the trees. They were peeing on the tent. It sounded like rain. I didn't know what to do. But we also heard lions, and we saw lions. But when you hear a lion, it's not like what you hear on TV, on National Geographic. A lion's roar is guttural. It goes through you. It travels up to 5 miles in the jungle because it's a very forceful animal. So here we are in our room at night, in a foreign country, trying to sleep, and my wife still had the light on. She was up, and we heard that lion roar, and I said, Diana, cut the light off. I don't think it would make any difference, you know. They're not man-eaters. We're not their natural prey, but you know, what do you think when you hear a lion roar? It was pretty impressive, I'll tell you. So there's a lot of birds we saw, a lot of animals. My wife will show you some of these photos. All these photos we took are the animals that... It's upside down. This leopard. So we went out on game drive. We were on the back of a Land Rover. There were seats back there, and it would carry like 4 people. And the guy stops under this tree, and he turns around, and he says, there was a leopard in this tree a couple of days ago. My wife tapped him on the shoulder and said, he's right here. It's about 6 feet away looking at us. He said, oh, good eye. He drove off. But lions, and lions hunt in a pride. They work together. So when they're hunting, they're pretty successful because they can tire the prey down, or they can trap it, or they can run it down. A leopard is a solitary hunter. A leopard will give up its kill if it's approached. A leopard can't afford to get hurt because it's a solitary hunter. If he ends up getting in a fight with a lion, trying to take his food, and he hurts his leg, he'll starve because he's got nobody to hunt for him. So leopard is different. A leopard will take a kill and go up into the tree, pull it up there, because lions don't really climb trees. But lions are different. They hunt in a pride, and that's why they're always so big, so many. Hippos. Hippo is called a water horse. They're very, very common. If you can see those jaws, they can open their jaws 180 degrees. And they've got opposing teeth that sharpen each other. Here's a picture of a skull. So they stay sharp because every time they close, they touch each other. They use them for fighting. They're grazers. They eat grass, but they're very aggressive. There's more people killed in Africa by hippos than any other animal. People are always going to the water's edge. They're in a boat. They're retrieving water. They're fishing, recreation, anything. But there's more people killed in Africa by hippos than anything else. Shortly after we got back, it was all over the news. There was some tourist that was killed by a hippo. She was charged, attacked, and ended up taking her life. But they're actually very fast, because we were on a boat and trying to keep up with them. They can run faster than you think. A hippo is comfortable in deep water. Most of the day they stay in the water because they have sensitive skin. They would get sunburned. At night they come out. That's when they do their grazing. One of the only times we saw our guide, I wouldn't say upset, but worried, we were on a night drive. We were spotlighting for animals with a red light so we wouldn't disturb their eyes. And all of a sudden he slapped the light down, cut that Land Rover off and cut his lights off. There was a hippo in front of us on the trail. Hippos use the trails just like we do. The hippo is not scared of you. He's not scared of that light. If you're shining that light on him, and all he sees is a big shadow, which is not natural for him at night. So he wants to get away from that shadow. Well, guess which way he's going? He's going towards you where the light is. So we have to hold our ground. We had another incident during the day when we were on a canoe. And like I said, a hippo is comfortable in deep water. So we were in a bend around a small tributary of the Zambezi. And that hippo didn't want to give ground. He didn't want us to come in his area. He didn't want to go in the water. He didn't want to go further down because there's probably another hippo there, territorial. They didn't want to fight with him. So we're back paddling against the current, they're holding up paddles, the guides, trying to get him to get in the water. Finally, he jumps in the water. Finally, he goes in the water. So we're paddling, let's get out of here. You know, there were like 3 canoes. So we're in the last canoe, and my wife is behind me. And she looks back, she says, the hippo is chasing us underwater. You've seen a fish. You've seen a fish when it runs in the water, the wake. He was running after the boat underwater. So we really got out of there.
Tell them what they said about it if you get to a hippo or a crocodile.
So that was a narrow tributary. He said if you hit a root or a rock and you turn the boat over, he said stay with the boat because it's full of crocodiles. There were crocodiles everywhere, big crocodiles. We saw some big ones. I don't know, probably the biggest one we saw was about that big. He said stay with the boat because there's crocodiles. He said, but if a hippo turns that boat over, he said, swim for shore. Because he said the hippo is going after the biggest thing, which is the canoe. So what do you do? The crocodile's going to get you or the hippo's going to get you? But anyhow, nothing got us. We ended up surviving. We also had an incident with an elephant. An elephant has little eyes, and they don't see well, but they have big ears, and they hear really well. So we're going along, and he's grazing in the water. Probably the water's about that deep, and he's pulling stuff out of there and grazing and eating. And those of you who live on farms, you know what a cow does. When a cow alerts, their ears come up like this. Well, that's what he did. All of a sudden he looked, he knew there was something out there, but he didn't know what it was. He's kind of nervous, and we're kind of nervous too, because the current is taking us there. So here we are, we're back paddling. All of a sudden he raises that trunk up. Oh! Here he comes. And I think I might have wet my pants, but I don't know. Anyway, he stopped, and the guide said, that was just a false charge. How do I know what a false charge is? I've never seen one before. An elephant charging you? An elephant is big. When you're sitting in a canoe about this far, and that elephant is 9 feet up, he's really big. You know, because you're looking at him from 6 feet or whatever height there is. But when you're this low, he really looks big. But anyway, it was no big deal, so we just made some good memories. There's a lot of birds, a lot of different species of birds in the jungle. These are bee eaters. So they build their nest in the sides of the cliffs of the riverbanks. They hollow it out, and the reason they do that, because a snake can't climb up that bank and in that hole, so they do that to nest. That's their idea of raising young ones. But they're very colorful. There's fish eagles. Fish eagle is a big bird. They hunt on the water. That's their national bird of Zambia. It's on the, did we bring any money? I forgot to bring some
No.
souvenir money. So it's on some of the paper bills, fish eagle, because that's their national bird. We saw hornbills, which are, there's ground hornbills and there's some that fly, but they have a big beak with a bulbous protrusion on the front of it. A hornbill is a cavity nester, so they find a big hollow tree. The female goes in there and lays eggs. When she starts sitting on the eggs to hatch them, the male covers that hole with mud and just leaves a little opening, and he feeds her in there. When the chicks hatch, he's feeding them. They're safe in there, nothing can get to them. When they're ready to fly out, they break that mud out, they all take off and fly. But that's their protection, so different kind of bird. We saw Egyptian geese, we saw weaver birds. They have the long pendulous nest, we saw hordes and hordes of them. Same thing, a snake can't, the entrance is from the bottom. So a snake got a hard time going down or trying to come back in there and eat the chicks. Anyway, we saw a lot of hippos. Because when we changed camps, we went from one camp to the next, about 35 kilometers, I think it was, by boat. And we saw literally thousands of hippos. That's where they live, of course, in the waters. But they kind of herd together and underwater and out. And all night long we could hear them singing. All night long they were singing, all night long. So, so this baby elephant, he looks a little odd, he doesn't have a tail. Crocodiles get it. When they all go into the water to either cross or to, or to drink. And we asked our guide about it. He said, yeah, crocodile got that tail, bite it off. He said, don't go swimming over there. So we, these are African painted dogs. Maybe it's not real super clear, but we were actually on the water. We could take fishing trips. Sometimes they would fix a meal and we would just lazily go down the river and we would eat. And they would mix drinks for us. They always had what they call sundowners. It's a British territory. It's a British, what's the word I'm looking for? It was a tradition to have sundowners. When the sun would go down, we always would find a spot, we'd rest our drink and we'd stop. If it was on a boat, if it was in the jungle, he'd look around, make sure it was a clear spot so nothing would surprise us. Take out a table, tablecloth on to get some chairs, we'd sit and watch the sun go down. And that's what we were doing that evening. Well, our guide had turned his radio off in the boat, so another boat came over there. He said, they just spotted some wild dogs, and they're endangered. There's not that many. He said, get to shore, we're going to pick you up, and we're going to race down there. And so we did. We caught up with them. And he said, I know we're close because I smell them. They stink. And you know what a dog smells like when nobody gives it a bath. Well, nobody gives their dogs a bath. They stink. But they're real colorful, and they rotate those ears. They got big ears for their size compared to a normal dog. They're yipping and howling, and they were hunting. They didn't pay any mind to us. They were just going and running. So we followed them a pretty good distance. All of a sudden, they all alerted. All their ears went up and took off. Here comes a lion. That's competition to them, those are meat eaters, and so is the lion. He didn't want them around, but they weren't going to mess with the lion. They all took off. So we saw a water buffalo. Water buffalo is also a dangerous animal. Did I have that picture of that guy with his gun? So we went on a game walk with a naturalist. He was explaining all of the different flora and the fauna man in front of us had a gun. He was I guess a military. Whenever you were on foot, there was somebody with a gun beside you, because it's a dangerous place out there. And this naturalist, all of a sudden, he looked up. He was not happy, because he told that guy, he said, you know, he said, our life is in your hands. He said, you don't see that water buffalo sitting down there? Cape buffalo? Water buffalo is Asian. This is a Cape buffalo. And the solitary males are pretty dangerous, the bachelor males. We came up on a couple of herds of them, but we were on the water. Well, we were also on the Jeep. But they keep all the young inside, and they're all facing out with their horns. It's very impressive. Nobody's gonna mess with them. They're very protective of their young ones. So at night, the constellations were just beautiful because there's no light pollution. Nobody lives there. It's a national park. There's no lights. It's not like here. Man, you fly over this country and it's lit up everywhere. You try to look in the distance. Over there, when the stars come up, you can see the stars come up from the horizon. Over here, you won't spot a star until it's pretty high already, because there's too much light pollution. Very, very dark. The constellations are different there because it's on the other side of the planet. It's on the other side of the equator. So when we say we see the man in the moon, they don't see that because the moon is upside down. You're looking at it in a different perspective. They said they see a rabbit, but I didn't quite get it there. But so you're seeing things differently. There's a constellation there called the Southern Cross. It's very distinct. It's very beautiful. You have to be on the other side of the planet to see it. You won't see it here. So we got to see it. It was very beautiful. Very beautiful. We love looking at stars at night. We had an outdoor shower, outdoor tub and shower on the Zambezi River. So and it was just a few people there. It was a very exclusive place, but it was beautiful. They had a bathroom there that had a toilet, had a sink, and it had a wall behind it, but it was wide open to the river. Since it was British, they call a bathroom a loo. They call it a loo. So they said this is a loo with a view. But you could sit on the toilet, you could just watch the hippos. So when some of the game walks, when the naturalist was talking to us, explaining how everything works in symbiosis. Everything is a symbiotic relationship. You take something out of the mix and then it's no longer fruitful. It doesn't work. So he was talking about hyenas. Hyena has big, massive jaws and narrow front quarters. They look odd if you've seen pictures of them. You've seen them in the zoo. But they eat everything. They eat the bones. They eat everything. Animals that eat meat generally don't eat the bones. The lions will strip a carcass and leave it, but a hyena will eat everything. So he was walking and he said, okay, well here's a pile of elephant dung. And as we're watching, the baboon comes over there and sits down. 50% of what an elephant eats doesn't get digested. So he sits down, he's picking out the nuts and whatever he can find to eat. It's a symbiotic relationship. And then he says, here's a scat from a hyena, the poop from a hyena. It's white. So why is it white? The calcium from the bones that he's eating. He said, okay. He said, this is where the birds come. This is where the turtles come. They want the calcium. Turtles for the shell, the birds for the eggs. Everything works in symbiosis. Everything works together. It's very interesting the way the gentleman explained it to us. So when we were in our tents, they warned us, you can't leave your tent unescorted. As a matter of fact, one morning he said, come look at this. There were leopard tracks right around the tent, the camps. Not our tent necessarily, but so we had a little walkie-talkie in the room if we had to leave. Of course, we had a bathroom in there, and we had hot showers, and we had water. We had everything we needed. It was very nice. But he said, don't leave without an escort. So one night they took us to boats across the river. There was a little sandbar, a little island, and we had a supper there. They set out tables and tablecloths and chairs. There's a guy standing there with a gun. I said, so you're worried about hippos, because there are hippos everywhere. He said, elephant too. But no one had to fire a shot. When we flew out of Zambia, the Land Rover takes us to the airstrip. It's dirt airstrips, that's how everybody comes in, and from the dirt airstrip, fly to a larger city, you know, in a jet. And of course, we're looking at zebras, we're looking at elephants, and we're looking at kudu and water buck. There's animals everywhere, jungle zebras. And I think there were a couple of zebras probably pretty close. So the driver let us off, and the pilot says, hey, he said, run those zebras back, will you? Because zebra can run fast, and when a plane is taking off, you can't stop. It's not like you're going to put on the brakes and stop. You have to go pretty fast, take off. He said, run those zebras back out of the way. He said, turn around and face me with the headlights. He said, if something's coming, blink your lights so I know I have time to stop. You know, who would figure that? Matter of fact, when we went to Kenya, it was the same thing. They had a motorcycle before. They knew a plane was coming in, so they went out there and they cleared the track, run all the animals back, you know, so the plane can land without a problem. So then we flew home, and we were on a 777, 777-400. It's a double-decker, 4-engine. It's a giant, massive plane. And I don't know, there were like 430 people on that plane. What's the population of Milton? 900, 800? There were over 430 people on that plane. It was a big plane. So we left our camp at 8:30 in the morning, 8:30 Saturday morning. We had a connecting flight and we had a layover. So 8:30 Saturday morning. What time did we land in Houston? 2:30 Sunday afternoon. That's how long that trip took us. It was a pretty long trip. But that was our trip to Zambia. Then we went to Kenya. Now Kenya is a little different country. There were a lot of ostriches. Tia, you want to take that around and show the students? This is an ostrich egg.
Oh.
This is a real ostrich egg. They cut a hole in it and take the yolk out. I mean, you've all seen chicken eggs. Ostrich is a pretty big bird. And the male is real colorful. I don't have any pictures of the, you should look them up. The female is more drab. And I think only one bird sits on them. They lay them in a clutch. And she knows which are hers. She's going to incubate those. If it's too many, she might push out some others, but she's going to make sure that hers hatches. We carried home 3 of those ostrich eggs and they didn't break. Lucky for us. Okay, now I'm talking about Kenya, which is in East Africa. We landed in Nairobi, and Nairobi is a place called Giraffe Manor. Giraffe Manor, they're giraffes. I didn't take this picture. This is on a postcard. But we took a lot of pictures of giraffes. They were kind of high fenced there. They were domesticated. The lodge that we stayed at had ivy growing all around the outside. They had it trimmed to about 16 feet. They grazed it all. Above that, it was green again. They were eating all the leaves. But they're used to being fed. So in the morning, they'd give us breakfast. They'd clear the table. They'd put some giraffe food on the table. And they opened the windows. So here the giraffes came in and they were eating. They were right in front of us. As a matter of fact, on the outside, I put some of those pellets in my mouth, and the giraffe has a tongue about 18 inches long, because they're always stripping leaves. That's how they eat. I took it out of my mouth. But they were domesticated, like I said. They're but they're beautiful animals. When a giraffe is born, you know, a cow will lay down to have a calf. The giraffe is standing up. That calf got to fall about 6.5 feet when it's born. Can you believe that? But they're beautiful animals. Which ones were these? The Rothschild? There's different species of giraffes, but I don't remember which one exactly that was. The Giraffe Manor was quite spectacular. We really enjoyed it. From there, we went to a different camp. It was on the Mara River. So the native people there, this is the Mara River. The native people there are the Maasai. They call them the Maasai Mara. But the Mara is the river or the area. The Maasai, if you've ever seen TV, where they have a dance, they have a performance. They're very tall, slender people. They jump straight up, and they can jump high. They'd be good basketball players. So they came to our camp one night and they were performing. They were singing in Swahili, and they just jump straight up, just for the joy of it, you know. But those are the Maasai. And this Mara River, part of the reason we went to this part of Africa, we wanted to see the migration of the wildebeest. There were probably a little less than 2 million wildebeest. They were, I think, as many as 15 million. But the wildebeest migrate, they follow the grass, they follow the rains. They have to cross the Mara River. It's not a bridge there, okay? They got to cross. It's pretty steep. But they all cross in mass, all at one time, because there's safety in numbers. I want to say they're dumb animals, but I don't know. You see this crocodile here? He's waiting. He's going to get him lunch. So they're real skittish. When one starts crossing, they all go. So we were waiting. There were a lot of vehicles there waiting. This is a well-known crossing. So, you know, they're, they start going down, they change their mind, come back up. Start going, change their mind. When one of them goes in the water, they all come. Then you look around, and I mean, it's thousands and thousands and thousands of wildebeest out there. And they see that movement, they sense that movement, they all start running. They all start running, because they're all going to cross at the same time because of the danger of the wildebeest, the danger to the wildebeest of the crocodiles. As a matter of fact, I think we saw one. I think I had that picture. You know, they get eaten. It's real steep where they come down, and they tumble down in the water. One of them came out on the other side on 3 legs, broke a leg. He was no longer able to walk, so he was going to be somebody's lunch that night. But when they have their young, they all have them just in a short while, probably within a couple of weeks, and they can run almost right away. Almost right away, they have to keep up. But the wildebeest are migrating, and so do the zebras. They're all following the grass. The wildebeest like the short grass, and the zebras like the tall grass. So they travel together, and it works good because they're not competing for, you know, grazing more or less. But it was something to see. That's considered one of the natural wonders of the world, the migration of the wildebeest, because it's so many, so many. It's hard to fathom. So while we were there, we saw an elephant nursery. So there's poaching that goes on, and some of those elephants lose their parents, you know, and some of them maybe die naturally. But they had these penned up and let out a few at a time, and they had a big milk bottle. And at the time, the closest they could get for them to survive, because they wouldn't drink cow's milk, was infant formula, human infant formula. And they were accustomed to drinking that, and they were able to survive. And it's big bottles, and boy, they're ready for that milk, and they give them that, and they turn it loose, and they wrap that trunk around it, and they're holding it, and they're drinking it themselves. Not with their hands, they got their trunk wrapped around it, and they're drinking. So I don't know what was in there, 25 elephants, I guess, all young ones. Then we took a hot air balloon over the jungle. So that was, it was a lot of fun. Hot air balloon, you can't control the direction. The wind controls the direction. So they release a balloon, they see where it's going and what the speed is, a small balloon. They determine it's safe, you take off. You take off about at dawn. At dawn, what, is generally pretty calm, right? That's when it's the least amount of wind. It gets windier during the day. There were 2 balloons launched that morning. And we were pretty much traversing the Mara River. But as it starts to lose altitude, and they hit the burners, and you know, it's pretty loud then, but once you get the altitude you want, it's deathly quiet, because you're traveling the same speed as the wind. So you don't hear any wind, you don't feel any wind, it's like dead calm that you're moving. You can see everything down below. And he let us down close to the river, and I just knew we were going to hit something. We were losing altitude. There's crocs down there, hippos down there. I think we kind of scraped some trees going back up, so he had it figured out. He got us back out. After, well, you start getting to borders of other countries. I forget which country it was close to.
Yeah, we had to go down.
So we had to set it down, and they have chase vehicles that are going to pick you up. And they feed you breakfast, because it's early in the morning. And I looked over there, they dismantled, they fold up the balloon, they dismantled the burners, they set the burners down and making scrambled eggs on there. They were using that. Why bring another stove when you had the propane and had the burner right there? But I didn't think I put that picture in there. So the basket is pretty big. There were probably
Oh, yeah.
maybe 6 or 7 people in there. Actually, it wasn't enough people, so they asked one of the people that worked there to crawl in to kind of balance it out. And hopefully, if it's no wind, they can set it down. They pull a rip vent and the air lets you settle. But the wind kept blowing. He said, we're going to tip. We're going to tip. So sure enough, we hit the ground, and then the balloon, everybody had to strap in and sit down, and it's padded, and there we were, like this. That's how we ended up. But it was a beautiful scene, because we could see elephants, and we saw giraffes, hippos, crocs. So there were some cheetahs there, and these 3 were brothers. Or, yeah, I think they were all the same sex. They were, so we followed them for a while. It's kind of strange when we were in one part of that trip driving, and there was another Land Rover coming, and they had all these big cameras in there. They said, BBC is filming a special. Stay out of the picture. So we had to always go around. They were filming the same animals we were trying to watch. And I saw some type of video on PBS about these 3 cheetahs, and I was wondering if it wasn't the same ones we saw, or even if it was the same film crew, but I honestly don't know. But so we followed them around and waited, and we were hoping to see them hunt, because they're very, very fast. And a jackal came through the area and just kind of annoying them, you know. So they chased him, but they weren't going to eat it, and they chased him off. But so Kenya is probably where we were at is within 3 degrees of the equator. So you know where the equator is. Splits the planet in half. And we were going to our. They had lunch for us in one area. We had our tent, and we were going there. And I was walking, and I looked, and I said, I don't see no shadow. And we weren't at the equator, but we were close. So I looked around and I stood around. I said, there's no shadow. It was just a bare minimum. But it's because we were so close to the equator and it was noon. So at the equator, at noon, the sun is directly overhead. So there's no shadow except what's directly under you. So it just felt odd, you know. Felt different. But we saw safari ants. And everybody knows what fire ants are here. Well, the safari ants, they move in a thick bundle in the stream, and whatever's in their way, they eat it. So it was easy enough to step over it, but the people we were traveling with, they didn't step over it. She said, what's going on? And she had to run to her tent and pull her pants off. She had ants on her legs, and they were biting and biting and biting. But all ants bite, I guess. When we were there, I bought this souvenir. Here, you want to show that souvenir around? Like I said, these are the Maasai people, and the ladies do beautiful beadwork. This is supposed to be a symbol of peace. The chieftains would have it. But it's a native piece of wood, and then they would put beads on there. And we were at, when we were in Nairobi, there was a manufacturing facility, and ladies were making jewelry and beads, and it was pretty much for women who didn't have any support or unwed mothers, and they were trying to support themselves, and so they were making all types of beautiful jewelry. But well, there's that. Well, maybe you can just try it like this. The show or not? There's some ostriches. And there were a lot of ostriches out there. I was really surprised. But it's in flat ground. And the male has a sort of a dance, and he'll flap his wings and move his head around. And we were fortunate enough to see one who was showing off for us, so we got to see that. Oh, well, I didn't really tell them about how close we were. So this is the edge of our bed here, our cot. And here's the elephant. They got 3-inch steel pipe around all of the tents. If that elephant would lean on that tent, I mean, he's gonna collapse that tent. There were, I think they call them elephant pepper trees, were surrounding that area. They were in the swamp, they were grazing and working their way through that water. And then they come out and they come after these elephant pepper trees. So I'm out on my, it's a little porch there, and I'm trying to video and take pictures, and the guy comes there, he said, tent, get inside the tent. So I did, but they walked right through, I mean, it's their territory. We had to get up from our meal. One of them was really happy because he looked, there was some fruit on there. He reached over there and got that fruit, he was helping himself. But that one elephant was nursing a calf. It was that close, I could hear it. Well, those of you that live on a farm, you know that cows have their udders in the back, by the back legs. Elephant has them under the front legs. That's where the udders are on an elephant. I don't know, that's the way God designed to make them.
Is this when we were laying down on that,
Oh, yeah.
watch the egg, we'll lose the egg?
Please don't. Well, that's just that we all fell over. This is
Yeah.
actually the way we landed. Yeah. But,
And Dad, didn't Mom pack you like bright colored clothes and they told you couldn't wear that?
well, on our first trip to Zambia, my wife loves brilliant colors, purples and pinks and blues and orange, and we had all types of gaudy clothes. So we're going to go out on safari, and it's a driving safari, but you're there to view the animals, right? You're not there to spook them. So the driver looked at me, he says, George, you can't wear that out here. I said, what? He said, you're supposed to wear khakis, and didn't you read the memo? I said, well, I guess not. So I had to go back in and change, and then we went out.
Oh, and look at the cute little warthogs.
Oh, yeah, the warthogs.
That was my favorite.
And they get on their front knees when they eat.
Yeah.
And
They're
there was
so cute.
a lot of them out there. Matter of fact, when we were sitting there after we fed the giraffes didn't eat all of it. Some of it fell out. So the warthogs from here to there, they came there, they picked up every bit of grain that they dropped. Those giraffes were getting kind of particular because some of it smelled like molasses. It was sweet, and not all of it. And so you put your hand out, and he would take what he wanted, and the rest he would just knock off. You know, he wanted the sweet stuff. He knew what he wanted. Whose camp was this?
Oh,
Ransom?
yeah, Sir,
What's the name of that guy that's so
Sir
rich?
Branson.
Richard Branson?
Mm-hmm.
Richard.
I think
Virgin
so.
Galactic or whatever?
Yeah.
Yeah, this one. Oh, these are the people we travel with. So this was his camp. It was not too far away. We had to have a COVID negative before we could get on the jet to fly back out. So we went to this guy's camp. It's considered the most exclusive hotel in the world. It's overlooking these plains in Savannah, and there's a water hole there that never goes dry. And you could see giraffe in the distance, elephants, maybe a Cape buffalo, helicopter sitting there on the pad, you know. It was, and they let us, you know, go through there and look. The guy told us that he brought somebody from his camp there too, because everybody had to have their COVID test. The guy was pretty rich. He said, go get my luggage. He said, I'm moving over here. He could afford it. We couldn't.
Tell them about
This is our vehicle.
tell them about the previous, like before y'all went, you guys have like shots or
Oh,
medicine.
We had to have yellow fever inoculations, and we had to take malaria pills, because malaria is prevalent there, and so is yellow fever. So we had to take those precautions. But you know, you're traveling in a foreign country.
That shows how deep
Oh,
steep the
so,
cliffs were.
so these are the wildebeest all the way down to here. That's probably about 30 feet, 35 feet. And some of them went down here, and some of them just fell. They hit that water and they were swimming. 'Cause like I said, there's crocodiles everywhere out there. I'm sorry the pictures aren't clear, but you can get the idea.
One of our tents.
Oh, yeah, there was another tent had a hammock on the outside. And here too, well, we could hear the lions at night, but when we went for breakfast, the guy said, "Here's there was water buffalo, Cape buffalo came through during the night." Glad we were in the tent. We don't want to meet them at night. This is how close we were to these lions. You see the tip of the hat? They're right there. there's a lot of those Land Rovers that come through there on a regular basis. It's a touristy area, and the animals are accustomed to it. But I was gonna stand up and take a picture. He says, George, sit down. He said, they're used to seeing that as one plane. You break the plane when you put your hands out, you put your head up, then they're looking, you know, they don't know what's going on. So as long as that vehicle was the same, it didn't really bother, you know. We came up on an elephant. Oh, can you see this crocodile? He's got the back of this wildebeest right here. He's fixing to have lunch.
Enlarged it. Maybe enlarged it.
Well, you know, we have it in the, we have it inside the elephant. See, this is a crocodile here, this is a wildebeest here. Oh, yeah, now. Yeah, you see those
They're
feet?
big.
So he's done,
Can I see it?
Yeah.
I don't see a crocodile.
You don't see a crocodile?
You know?
Here's teeth. This is the snout. This is
Kinda camouflage.
the head.
Yeah.
And here's the tail.
This is so
Oh, I
big.
see it now.
Yeah, it's not
It's
real
really
clear.
big.
That's a crocodile. Look at the size of him compared to the wildebeest. The wildebeest is the size of a small heifer.
And they wanted me to swim in the river. No. No way. Oh, here's that, the Maasai.
Oh.
Where's he at? Oh, there he is.
Yeah, he's one of the Maasai. They're in their traditional dress, and they all talk English. He was British English, but of course they also talk Swahili. But
And here's your ants.
oh, these are the safari ants. Just a heavy line of ants. Just don't step on them.
Don't step on.
We have a lot of interesting tribes.
Yeah, this fishy.
Yeah, it's a fishy, but that's the national bird of was it Kenya? No, that was Zambia. I'm sorry.
Is this over? We're eating lunch. Wait. There it
Close it
is.
down a little more. Yeah, that's the people we travel with. So whenever we'd have lunch, he'd make sure it was an opening. Because you don't want a lion crouching there or a leopard or something. When we docked one of those canoes, and we ran into the shore, and I jumped out, and he said, thanks for clearing the area for me, George. 'Cause they're supposed to go first and see what's over there. We didn't know.
Here's, what are these in here?
Well, it's a couple of leopards in a tree. This was a mother leopard and this was a young one. So they're climbers. There's a couple of elephants tussling. So these are acacia trees. So in the part of the savanna that we were, where the giraffes were prevalent, they were all trimmed up high. They looked like umbrellas because the giraffes ate everything from the bottom, everything they could reach. It was just the perfect umbrella, all the acacia trees. They had eaten them down. Year up? Year up. Is it hour up already?
Well, yeah, but we have activity crews, so if you need a few more minutes, that's fine.
Oh, awesome.
Oh, this was just the skull of an elephant. They said they had a cholera outbreak and they lost some elephants.
Oh, that one was
Well-
a cool picture of not.
I didn't take this photo, but it was in our lodge. It was on the table. You see, she's protecting that baby giraffe. But
How did the lion get up there?
jumped.
Like that.
Took a running start, all his way up. I hope they survived, but that's only a picture I saw. I don't know how it turned out.
Picture of vegetables, hippos and all.
Did you bring the CDs?
They tried to put it-
Mom, did you bring the CDs?
But
Did you bring the music?
we couldn't find it.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Would you have been able to play it?
Yes, I have,
She
yes.
did.
So we probably got a few more pictures, but, oh, show that elephant here.
This one?
No. This one here. That comes. other side of the tree. We got very close to a lot of those elephants because we were on the Land Rover. And one of those bull elephants was in musk. When they are in musk, they have some glands that are leaking on the side of their cheek. And they're very ornery. So we got close to one, but he was on the other side of a tree line down a embankment. And he was not happy. He was trying to get to us, so we drove on off. But these are the weaver birds.
Yeah.
Yeah, their entrance is from the bottom, is to keep out the snakes or anything else that they're trying to.
Oh, termite mound.
So there's two things that are. This is a mound of termites, like you see a fire ant nest. And in different parts of Africa, there's a lot of termite mounds because there's a lot of woods. Now, I told you the elephant is the keystone species in the jungle. So is the termites. Parts of the jungle that flood on a regular basis when they have the rains and then they dry out. So the termite mounds are going to be high ground because they bring up all of this dirt, bring it up. And it accomplishes one of two things. Being high ground, when the water comes up, a lot of the animals will migrate to there because they don't all want to sleep in the water or sit in the water. So they're using that. These termites doing one of two things. They're eating all of the brush and the debris. We found it looked like a perfect limb laying there, but it was nothing but a shell. They had eaten everything, and it was just a crust. It was crushing. There's so many of them, they eat all the time. But another thing they do, they're bringing up minerals from deep in the ground that aren't readily available. And the elephants like that, and some of the other animals. So they're going there and they're eating some of that clay because it has the salts and the minerals that they require. Get that baboon on the back of that mama, that's how they were traveling. So the termite, eventually that becomes an island, and the elephants are there, so they're dropping seeds. So then there's trees growing there, and it's like little oases in the middle of all this high water. So the elephant is one keystone species as well as the elephant. Very small and very large.
All kinds of animals.
And just everywhere you look, it's zebras, impala, kudu, water buck, with baboons. But there's safety in numbers because like baboons or the monkeys will sound an alarm when there's some danger. And that's why they all want to stick together, because then they know, because they can't be looking all the time. Something is stalking them. There's a picture of the moon, but it's hard to fathom. So this is a picture of the moon. Hard to make detail, but it's upside down from the way we see it here. You can show that. So we couldn't show you all the pictures, it would be too boring, but we really enjoyed our travels. Are there any questions that I might be able to answer? So who's going to Africa next? Who's going to go?
I have a question.
Oh, I hope I can answer it.
The wildebeest, when you said they crossed, how did you know to be there to see it? Is it a certain time of year that they cross? Certain time of day?
I should show you the picture of all the Land Rovers and all the vehicles that are there lined up.
It's a certain time.
It's a certain time.
There's a certain area that is low enough. Some of it is too abrupt and too steep. So they follow a trail, and there's multiple places where they can cross. But all of these guys work together. They know when the herds are moving, and they know where they're conjugating, and they know where they're going to cross. And it was a waiting game because we would be waiting here, and all of a sudden you hear all the vehicles start. They're going to cross a mile down the road, so everybody's driving over here. So it's commercialized to a way, but I mean they don't impede their progress. They're still going to cross, but they're crossing because they have to. They're looking for grass. They graze this area out and they follow the rains. The rains are pretty regular, so they're migrating there and then they migrate back.
See all those, but that was nothing. They were everywhere.
Yeah, look at all those vehicles. That's a wildebeest crossing. But
And here's those birds that were in the
oh, those are the bee eaters, and they're very beautiful. But they drill a hole in the side of the cliff. That's where they lay their eggs. They're about that big. They're small birds. They sure are pretty.
Sophia, did you have a question? Okay, your earrings.
Well,
That was it.
I wanna get a group picture, so all of you have to come up here. Do you wanna take this?
how cool is that?
Can somebody will you trust somebody to hold this and not break it?
I'm gonna turn off the projector.
I don't.
Sure.
Y'all can hold it, y'all can hold the eggs, not them.
Oh.
You don't think I can trust any of these kids to hold that egg?
Who can, I got it, table.
Maybe you would trust me.
Sophia. Alright. Okay, Ossie, come in front, kind of space, I want it light up front. I want them to see you.
I'm up in the front.
Colin, that was good, and Dave in the back, Ava come in the back, right here, Colin. Ava, come right here.
Keep that way a little. Ava, go that way a little bit.
Make sure y'all can see her,
You're
y'all in the
gonna go
window.
right between those two. Okay. All right, 1, 2, 3. I'm gonna take a bunch. Keep smiling, keep smiling. Hang on. 1, 2, 3. Keep smiling. 1, 2, 3. Thank you so much.
Hey.
What do we tell them?
Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome.
Awesome.
Thank you.